80% of all US dollars in existence have never touched American soil. They weren't printed by the Federal Reserve. They were conjured out of thin air by private foreign banks in London, Tokyo, and Zurich, operating in a massive shadow architecture completely outside US jurisdiction. This is the invisible nervous system of the planet. And now, it's beginning to seize up. Welcome to Documentary Dollar. We look at the global economy and see trade, cars, oil, microchips. But if you strip away the physical goods, what's left is a vast, swirling ocean of promises. And almost every single promise is denominated in one thing: the United States dollar. It is the operating system of planet Earth. If you are a Peruvian coffee farmer selling to Germany, the transaction happens in dollars. If China buys oil from Saudi Arabia, it happens in dollars. Why? The conventional history is that America is the world's largest economy, so its currency is king. But that logic broke in 1971. When President Nixon severed the dollar's link to gold, the dollar became purely fiat, paper backed by nothing but faith in the US government. By all historical logic, the system should have collapsed. Instead, something paradoxical happened. The world's addiction to the dollar accelerated. This is the central mystery of modern finance. How does a system based on American debt become the only safe haven for global savings? Why, when a crisis hits, even one originating in America, does the world rush to buy more dollars? The answer isn't in Washington, D.C. It lies in a hidden parallel system that few politicians even know exists. A system that saved the dollar 50 years ago and is now threatening to destroy it. Most people think the Federal Reserve controls the supply of dollars. They don't. The Fed controls the onshore dollar, the money inside the US banking system. But the real action is offshore. Enter the Eurodollar system. Now, don't let the name fool you. It has nothing to do with the euro currency. A Eurodollar is simply a US dollar held in a bank outside the United States. It started accidentally in the 1950s. The Soviet Union needed dollars for trade, but was terrified of keeping them in American banks where they could be frozen. So, they deposited them in London banks instead. Suddenly, London banks had dollars sitting outside US regulations. No reserve requirements. No FDIC insurance. No rules. And here is where it gets strange. These foreign banks realized they could lend these dollars out over and over again, creating credit out of thin air. They weren't printing physical bills. They were creating digital IOUs. This shadow banking system exploded. It became the engine of globalization. It's how the world financed its growth for 40 years. It's massive, it's opaque, and it's highly unstable. The 2008 crisis wasn't just about American subprime mortgages. It was a run on this offshore Eurodollar system. European banks had borrowed excessively in short-term dollars to buy long-term American assets. When the music stopped, everyone needed actual US dollars desperately. And there weren't enough to go around. The system almost died. The only reason it survived is because the Federal Reserve opened massive swap lines, essentially flooding foreign central banks with trillions of newly created onshore dollars to bail out the offshore casino. The key players in this architecture aren't governments. They are the global systemically important banks, J.P. Morgan, HSBC, Deutsche Bank. They are the architects of this shadow world, incentivized by profit to leverage the system until it breaks, knowing the Fed has to save them. But the bailouts came with a hidden cost. The system survived, but the trust began to erode. For decades, the unspoken agreement was this: the US gets to print the world's currency, running massive deficits without consequence. In exchange, the US provides a neutral, apolitical payment rail for the rest of the world to do business. The dollar was supposed to be like a utility, like water or electricity. It just worked, regardless of your politics. Then came February 2022. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and its allies didn't just sanction trade. They took the unprecedented step of freezing Russia's foreign currency reserves, over $300 billion held in Western central banks. This was the trigger. Regardless of your stance on the war, this action shattered the myth of the dollar's neutrality. It sent a shockwave through Beijing, Riyadh, New Delhi, and Brasilia. The message was clear. If you cross Washington geopolitically, your national savings, held in that offshore architecture, can be deleted with a keystroke. We saw an echo of this in the 1956 Suez Crisis, when America forced Britain to back down by threatening to crash the British pound. But that was a scalpel. 2022 was a sledgehammer swung at the foundation of the global financial system. Suddenly, holding dollars wasn't just an economic decision. It became a national security risk. So, what happens when the world loses faith in its operating system? We aren't facing an overnight collapse. We are facing a great splintering. This transition will reshape three key areas of our lives. First, financial institutions will fragment. The era of seamless, hyper-efficient global capital flow is ending. Banks will have to navigate a minefield of conflicting sanctions and compliance regimes. Moving money across borders will become slower, more expensive, and more political. The global plumbing will get clogged. Second, governments are frantically building fire exits. We see record central bank buying of gold, an asset with no counterparty risk. We see the rapid development of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, designed to bypass the dollar-dominated SWIFT messaging system. We are already seeing bilateral trade deals, China buying Saudi oil in yuan, India buying Russian resources in rupees. They aren't trying to replace the dollar yet. They're trying to ensure they can survive without it. And finally, what does this mean for you? As the global system becomes less efficient, it becomes more expensive. The peace dividend of cheap global goods, powered by the frictionless dollar system, is over. For decades, the U.S. enjoyed an exorbitant privilege, exporting inflation to the rest of the world in exchange for cheap imports. As the world pushes back against the dollar, that inflation will increasingly stay home. The hidden architecture of the dollar system proves one fundamental truth that is often missed. We tend to think of the dollar's power coming from America's military or its economic size. But its true power lies in the network effect. The dollar isn't just money. It is the communication protocol for global value. It's like the TCP/IP of finance. You might hate the internet service provider, you might distrust the people running the servers, but if you want to communicate with the world, you have to use the protocol. The world is trapped in a prisoner's dilemma. Many nations want to escape the dollar system, but no one wants to be the first to jump off the boat into the cold water of a non-existent alternative. The dollar system won't end because it is replaced by something better. It will erode because the trust required to maintain its complex, hidden architecture has been broken. We are moving from a world of one integrated network to a world of walled gardens. The dollar system isn't dying. It's splintering. And understanding how it splinters is the single most important financial question of the next decade. To understand the primary rival attempting to build a new architecture, you need to watch our deep dive into the rise of the digital yuan right here.